I've been painting since 2017, and during that period I started with brush lettering. Brush lettering was a very fun tool for me to write inspirational quotes to encourage not just myself but my friends and people I cared about. And that's when I went further and I discovered watercolor. Watercolor was a medium that I became obsessed by because I loved all the colors, I loved the variety, the different papers, the movement, the water, that unpredictability. There was so much that I learned from watercolor. And apart from all the different materials, supplies and techniques, something I realized about watercolor was that it also taught me a lot about myself. I started to discover how my perfectionistic self, or sometimes my fear of failure or my self-doubts, tend to emerge. And I want to take this video to be used as an opportunity for me to share with you how all of these self-doubts, feelings of perfectionism, wanting to control how your painting looks like, is all part of the process. And process is not just about creating art or understanding what supplies and techniques you're using. Process is really deeper, where it goes into understanding what goes through in your mind, how your body connects with the materials, how you're holding the brush, your breath, and so on. So this series not only allows you to go through one technique in watercolor, but it also gives you an opportunity to look inwards, discover some of the different feelings, thoughts, and even sensations in your body as you're creating. You might have a different experience from me as I'm going through this video, and that's fine because your experience is unique to you. I want you to stay curious. There's no right or wrong way of feeling. When you are doing this exercise, try doing it on 2 separate days, and you might even notice that there's a difference between the 2 different sessions, where maybe on one session you might be feeling light and good about what you've created, and another session you might feel like it didn't really go with what you felt like. So all the different feelings that you might have are all valid, and for you to stay curious with it, instead of judging yourself, shaming or criticizing how you're feeling, or feeling like there's a right or wrong way to do certain things, I want you to keep an open mind so that this exercise is something that you can revisit anytime and try out on your own, hopefully with some prompts and questions to help you to stay grounded and connect better with art and watercolor. So in my space, I've got my cold press 100% cotton watercolor paper from Bao Hong. I have also taped down my paper around the edges. So this is a watercolor block. So the chances of it warping is reduced because it's going to stay flat. It's been glued all around on the sides. It's my preferred type of watercolor paper because it keeps my paper straight after it has dried. I have also used tape, that just regular Japanese washi tape, and I will be using a flat brush. So these exercises today are aimed at helping you to understand and build your relationship with watercolor, water, and how it interacts on the paper. One of the things that many beginners and even experienced watercolor artists face is the fear of trying out new things. There's this discomfort around it, and I want us to just use today's session to paint with no real objective, and we're just going to be exploring the relationship between water, paint, and the paper. So if you're ready, you can dive in with me. You don't have to follow exactly as I'm doing, and this is just a guide. So in the 2 boxes, we're going to do 2 different things. I am going to pre-wet the first box, and I'm taking my time where I am putting in clean water and applying an even layer within this box. And what I want to do here is I'm going to take my paint and I'm going to drop it in. I did not expect to create a pattern from this, but I felt inclined to do it. As I was holding this square brush, somehow I felt like I wanted to just dab and create that shape. Notice how your fingers are holding onto your brush. Are you gripping it tightly, holding it loosely? Pay attention to what your other hand is doing. Notice your breathing as you are doing this exercise. Find some curiosity in here. Notice if you are finding anything new, or maybe you are even finding that this exercise is not very helpful for you. Whatever stage you're at, I want you to just pay attention to the messages that you are saying in your head, the way in which your body is moving with your materials, whether you're holding your brush close to the brush hairs, or if you're holding it further, or maybe you're choosing to try holding it at the tip and moving around. I'm repeatedly going back, adding in darker colors on the same shapes, just seeing what happens. I did not dip my brush back into the jar. And what I notice when I look at this is that there is so much movement in the paint and the water. I see that the paint doesn't want to conform to this square shape that the brush is making, because it's interacting with the water on the paper. And as a result, it creates this furry, feathery edges that I see. Some parts are running more than others. I'm going to try and introduce water to it and disrupt this pattern. So I've dipped my brush into my jar of water. I'm going to dab the excess on the paper towel and try and disrupt some of these squares and see what happens. I've added water to it, just applying over the area. And I want to see what happens to these squares. I see that it started to move in a different way, almost creating a shadow, a lighter color that is around the existing dark area that I put on. Now, as I'm doing this video and I'm commentating to you, I'm noticing my own thoughts as well. Wondering if this is going to be useful, wondering if would anyone want to follow on. And these are my thoughts. Yours could be completely different. You could be in a different space. I'm going to dab in one dot in each square, just adding in pigment. And as I'm moving, I'm also mindful of the rhythm that my body is creating to help me to move from one square to the next. My mind is searching for the next square that has not been dotted. I'm also noticing that some of the dots have faded away and wondering whether I should add more paint. So I'm going to go with what my mind is feeling, and I'm going to add more paint to my plate. And I'm going to add more paint. And now I'm noticing that my paper has started to dry. It is no longer as wet as we started. So then the paint has started to move in a different way. You can feel the satisfaction of seeing each of these dots bloom together with the water, and feel a sense of curiosity as to why those two dots have not moved. Just paying attention to your body as you are doing this practice.
You're welcome to continue working on your art. I'll see you next week as we work on part 2.
I'm happy that you have joined me on this journey where we explored how watercolor worked on paper. I went into this painting with no real plan, and my hope was to allow myself to just do what my body felt like doing, and at the same time explore different things with watercolor, how it worked, what it looked like when I added water, when I added paint, and having that opportunity to see how the materials interacted with each other really not only allows me to learn about the material, but also to learn about my own internal process, all of those invisible processes that you don't actually see on screen. I hope that this gave you the opportunity to get grounded, that you connected with your mind and your body as you created the art. I look forward to seeing you again next week as we do yet another exercise to help you to gain more clarity as you ground yourself in art.